Let's go to the New South Wales budget today. The Treasurer brought down his first budget and, of course, the first for the Minns government, the first in 10 years. Joining me now for the latest from Macquarie Street, the Daily Telly's state political editor, James O'Doherty. Well, it was delayed, as we know, James, by 3 months while the government conducted, and this is spin, I know, a line-by-line spending review. Big spending cuts, of course, in there, a focus on housing and infrastructure. Take us through the latest.
Well, you're right, Peter. Good evening. It was delayed by 3 months whilst the new government went through everything that the previous government had forecast as part of their budget preparation. The new government effectively accused the coalition of having $7 billion in unfunded promises on their books, so the government proceeded with this expenditure review. That found $13 billion in cuts that were made or spending that was reprioritised, among that cutting the pay of bureaucratic fat cats and freezing the pay of politicians. That's saving something like $750 million. Also scrapping a fair amount of infrastructure projects that the previous government announced that Labor said they wouldn't go ahead with. That saved billions of dollars as well. Most interestingly, the government was able to find a couple of $100 million essentially down the couch. That's money that was left over in unused bank accounts that was left over from previous infrastructure projects. That's now being spent to build new houses, Peter.
What about the strength of the Treasurer's comments about Eraring? Because I have to say, I absolutely agree with him. I don't back, never have, the privatisation of critical assets like energy, like water, and we could go on. Do you think they're going to have a massive rethink there?
Well, Labor is definitely going to need to extend the life of Eraring. The problem is we don't know how much that's going to cost. The Labor Party took some time to come to this position, which seemed to be fairly obvious that they would need to extend the life of this coal-fired power plant to effectively keep the lights on. No money for that extension in the budget, though. The problem is that's owned by Origin. New South Wales doesn't own that anymore, so if we're going to extend the life of Eraring, we'll probably need to pay for it. No money set aside in this budget. Daniel Mookie says that he doesn't want to give Origin any indication of what we might be willing to pay. The money will come in next year's budget update.
What about the reports that were running on Sydney radio this afternoon that the Premier has cancelled, or the Treasurer too, cancelled Christmas? I mean, given he told us he wouldn't put anything about the coronation on the sales, it was a money-saving exercise, but of course it was politically motivated. I mean, it was all about the Republic. Is this push against Christmas a part of, Labor's, I guess, broader view about cancelling Christian events? What's behind this?
Well, if you'd ask Dominic Perrottet, he'd certainly say yes. What happened was, we broke the story in the Daily Telegraph this morning, the government has cancelled a Christmas festival designed to bring people into the city to celebrate Christmas. That got more than 100,000 people attending from across Sydney. The problem was Destination New South Wales, which runs major events here, didn't like it very much at all. They didn't think that it had a return on investment. So as part of the government's expenditure review budget raiser gang, that policy or that event has now been scrapped. Well, it's also been scrapped along with Sydney's Open for Lunch event, a long lunch which closed down George Street. Sources close to these events effectively say that this government doesn't want to do the same things that the previous government has done. There's probably something in that. Minns doesn't really want to be tied to the same projects or popular events that Dominic Perrottet was, Peter.
I will agree with you on that point, but I think there's still something pretty sinister about Labor and Christmas across the board. Thank you, James, for the update.